Hi everybody, it's Franny and welcome to Heidi and Franny's Garage. Does your 996 make weird creaky noises when you go over bumps at slow speeds, especially in the front end? Well, it could mean that you need to replace this. This is the lower link, and the one on the left side on this car is bad. What happens is that these ball joints go bad, and they start to creak and make noise when the suspension moves. So that's today's project, is to replace this. After a bit of research on this noise, I came to the conclusion that it's the actual ball link on the end of this lower arm here that I showed before. So here's our boot back here, and there's a huge rip, and it actually goes all the way around the other side. So this boot is done, and it's going to have to get completely replaced. So we can't just replace the boot, unfortunately. We have to replace that entire arm there. If you look down here, you can see how close this is here to this arm is to our ceramic brake. And this is a very, very, very expensive part. So we're going to have to be very careful with that. I'm kind of hoping I don't have to take the rotor off, but we'll see. So this arm is held on here with a big bolt through this pin here. Then there's the, I think they call it the tuning fork here. This is sort of a leading link that keeps this from moving back and forth. We're going to have to pull that out. And then, of course, the bolt that looks just like this. It's the bolt at the top of the ball joint. We're going to have to get that out. And this is a conical shaped shaft here, too. So we're going to have to kind of bang this down. Be very careful with it. I've been soaking it for a few days with PT Blaster, and I'm kind of hoping it's going to come out without too much fuss. First step's going to be to get the car up off the ground, get this wheel up, and we'll get started on getting this part out. The bolts here are kind of a weird size, actually. These are 18s here. This one, this side is also 18, and our ball link up here is also 18. So I'm going to get to loosening these up, and we'll try to get some of this stuff off. Start with loosening this one because it's kind of most accessible. This tuning forky guy here has to come off and swing out of the way, or we'll never get this thing down. So that's probably the next step. Pull this bolt through carefully. I can see, looking at this bolt, that it's had some blue Loctite on it, so that's something to think about when we put it all back together. There we go. This is sliding easily, I hope. There we go. Okay. Next step is going to be to squirt a little bit of PT Blaster up here to coax this ball joint shaft out. There we go. That ought to work. Also, on our lower link here, we have a small ball joint we have to remove as well. So we'll go ahead and take that guy off. There we go. There. Okay. All right, that little guy is kind of out of the way. We'll set it up there. The next part's going to be the hard bit. We've got to get this guy out, and it's in there pretty tight, I'm afraid. So let me see what I can do. We'll start with the hammer. We'll be very, very careful and see if we can coax it out.
Eventually.
Well, I finally got this bolt on the ball joint loose. So let me show you what I did to get this thing loose. It was a little bit of a bear. It really wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but still. So I used a large extension like this. I put the nut back on the bolt, and that's on there for two reasons. One is when it does come loose, I don't want it just falling down if it's going to do that. I want it to stop. And the second reason is if I'm going to bang on it from the top, I don't want to mushroom the top of this bolt that's in there, and then it won't go through the carrier here. So then we're in a way even bigger problem, bigger mess than we started with. Okay, so what I did was I put this guy up here like that, and then grabbed an actual real live metal hammer, and got my light kind of in the way here, and I banged on it from up here. Went bang, 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 quite a bit. And it really didn't budge. So I hit it with a little more PT blaster, and I was thinking, man, it's a little hard to get a good swing on it up there as well. And my hammer's not all that heavy, and I was thinking, now what? Well, I thought, sometimes if you side load these things, they actually come off easier. So I hit it here. Now there's a little web here underneath this part, and you can kind of see where I was whacking it right here. And sometimes all they really need is just a shock to just sort of move it a little bit, and then it comes off just fine. So I whacked it 3 or 4 times pretty good here, and I could get good purchase on it too. I could get a good hit on it. And I know I'm replacing this part, so I don't really care. And lo and behold, it came loose. Woohoo! All right. So I'm going to keep this nut in here on this bolt because I don't want it swinging down. Once again, we have to be very careful not to hit our disc. So with the bolt about there, this will slide down a ways, but it kind of stops. It gets jammed, and that's because we're still pinned up here on the top. So I'm going to need to take the bolt out here and unpin this. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention was that I put one of the wedges underneath the wheel because I don't want it dropping. So we still have the tire on, which is great, and that'll hold this whole assembly from dropping. Get our bolt out, push this through, push back the other side there. We can see it's loose. I'm going to be very, very careful pulling this out. I'm going to support it on both sides so it comes out slowly. And it's already up against the base of the nut, which is great. So we'll take a few more turns off the nut. Just make sure it's going to come out nicely. Yeah, still looks good. Checking my clearance in the back here. All right, that's our nut supporting this. And I've got my fingers actually between it and the disc. Are you going to come out carefully? There we go. Wiggle it back and forth a little bit. There we go. All right. Well, now we can get a good look at this thing too. Look at this. Oh my gosh. So that was totally our problem, huh? When these things rip like that, then water gets in, and at best water gets in, but you probably get a bunch of dirt as well. And so oh, look how loose this is. So it just absolutely ruins this poor thing. Now I did check the other side, and its rubber boot is completely intact and it's totally fine. So I'll keep an eye on it, but no need to swap out a part that's actually working just fine. And like I said, I think this was more probably caused by road damage. See how loose that is? The new part is actually very, very difficult to move. Let me get that. So just for comparison's sake, this is the new part, and a nice, beautiful boot there, and it's pretty hard to move things back and forth. Quite a bit more difficult to move than the other one. The other one is completely shot. Comes with a nice lock washer on the top, which is great. So at this point, I'm just going to refit this. Now I think I'm going to clean this hole just to make sure it's nice and clean and we don't have too much PT blaster in there, but I think that's about it. Oh, we have to swap out our bracket as well. So there's that little plastic bracket that hooks to this little arm that's up here. So we'll go ahead and pull that off the other one. Now's the time to do that, I think. All right, so the little bracket we have to get off is this guy here. And I want to make sure we put it on the right way. So it's, let's see, so the way it was in the car was like this, which means that this bracket is facing towards the rear of the car. That way's forward and that way's backward. So there's a little plastic pin here, I think, and I'm going to just drive that pin out and this plastic piece should come out. So I have my part off. I push the pin in from the other side to release it, and we'll just go ahead and reassemble it on our new part. All right, we have our bracket remounted, so we're all good there. Like I said, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit and get this guy back on. There's teeny little rocks and things up here, you know, you kind of expect there to be some schmutz. Great opportunity to check your CV booties here too. So kind of feel around them. You got great access. So anytime you take something off like this, it's always great to just kind of look around and see what you got, because it really makes it a lot easier. So just like before, I'm going to be super duper careful. I'm going to keep some fingers behind it to make sure I'm not going to prang that disc. Up you go. Okay, there we go. We've got our new nut, so I'll put that on just to hold everything in place. Okay, that'll hold that in. Go ahead and fit our main pivot bolt back here as well. We can fit a little blue Loctite to our bolt. All right, that ought to do. Fit our bolt back in. There we go. Got our nut here. That looks good. To get our tuning fork in place as well. So it's important when you're doing these sorts of assemblies to leave everything good and loose, because if it's super tight, you tighten one thing, you'll never get everything else on. So everything's still good and loose so we can move everything together. So we're going to add some blue Loctite to this as well. All right. Bolt from the bottom. All right. Great. Nut on the top. Okay, that's super awesome. I'm going to add a little blue Loctite to the ball joint as well, or the threads on the ball joint. Okay, there we go. Now this is a nylock locking bolt as well, so the blue Loctite is just sort of an added extra kind of safety thing. Okay, well, let's run that back down. We need to torque our bolts down. This one's going to go to 89 pound-feet. This one is quite a bit. It goes to 118 pound-feet. And then the one on top of the ball joint there isn't quite as crazy. It's 56 pound-feet. But as you can see, access for these things is kind of difficult. How am I going to get a socket up in there to get my torque wrench on? I maybe could get from the back, but it's awfully hard to get to actually. So I have a pretty cool little accessory that I've shown before, I think, and it's really interesting. It's an extender for the wrench itself. And so the way this works is you hook your ratchet on the back of this, and it's clamped on good and tight onto the wrench. And what we do is put this on like this here. Let's see, like that, because we're going to tighten this thing. And as long as our torque wrench is at 90 degrees to this, then whatever we set our torque wrench to will be the torque that's applied. If you run it straight down, then you have to go through a bit of calculations in order to get the correct torque. That might be actually beneficial if you need more torque. But in this case, I'm going to just put this guy on at 90 degrees, like that. All right, there we go. And see what we can do about torquing this down. The bolt on the back here is 16. So I can hang this back here. It'll tell me if it's spinning at least, because I kind of need both hands to do this properly. There we go. All right. There we go. So far, so good. There we go. Holy cow. All right. Woo! That's an awful lot. So 89 pound-feet for this one. And we got our torque wrench to click over, so I'm feeling pretty good about that one. This guy here needs to go to 118. This was a bear at 90. This will be interesting. There we go. All right, holy cow. Okay, that's 118 pound-feet on this guy. The only one left is the actual ball joint one. So that one's pretty minimal. It's 56 pound-feet. So we're gonna hook up the same sort of rig and torque that one down as well. With our wrench at 90 degrees, we're pretty much all set here. We just got to kind of work this guy up there and get this going. Here we go. You set? There we go. Okay, now I know that seems a little crazy using this guy, but it works really well. And how else are you going to get those bolts torqued properly? So this little tool is really worth it. It's really awesome for being able to use a wrench and then attach your torque wrench to it. It's really a good piece, so I'm very happy with that. All right. So the very last thing to do is this little arm that comes down to the sensor here. That'll be super easy. So we'll go ahead and put that on really quick. That's just a couple of 10 millimeters. All right, there we go. Okay, well, arms back on, everything's good. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll get right to them. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, safe travels. Bye.